Bishop Nicholas, you've been Bishop of Salisbury for 10 years. Has being a bishop turned out to be what you expected it to be?
It's quite hard work, Tim. There was a lot more driving than I'd expected, and truthfully I'm being driven. But the mileage and the distances across the diocese are huge. And so in a normal time, when it's not been pandemic, then I'd easily be doing I think I did 24,000 miles in the first year, just in the diocese. Nobody told me that in advance. I've been a parish priest, and I always thought the best thing about being a parish priest was you lived and worked in the same place, and I hadn't quite worked out the dynamics of that for a bishop.
I mean, it's immensely hard work. The hours are very, very long. Were you prepared for all the admin and everything that goes with presiding over such a huge operation as a diocese?
Well, the scale of it is quite big, and the admin is only part of it, but it's a job with many parts to it. And so, the diocese is made up of a diocesan board of finance, which is the sort of main body in terms of the parish churches. But we've also got a board of education with 196 schools and academies. That's another big bit of the operation. And then, of course, there's the cathedral. Not my responsibility, but I've got oversight. I'm the visitor as well as a member of the chapter and as well as the bishop. And so there are those sort of different elements to this, and trying to have oversight of what's going on within the diocese relating to the House of Bishops and therefore the national church, and to some extent the international church as well. And then as time came on, a seat in the House of Lords. And those elements I found quite complex to balance.
You must have had some surprises over the last 10 years. Share some of them with us.
Well, Novichok was a surprise. That was a less pleasant surprise, and trying to work out how to handle it. That was really complicated for Salisbury as a city, because we hadn't got a narrative. We didn't know what the story was. We just knew the impact of what had happened and this terrible breach of trust and sense of violation. And I think that was one of the more difficult things to deal with as a community. And actually, the local churches were fantastic in the way they responded to that. And I thought the MP was good too. But what threw us was when Dawn Sturgis died and we didn't have an explanation, we didn't have a narrative. We couldn't work out what had happened or tell a story that was going to reassure a community, because we didn't know. And I think trying to work that through, that was one of the most difficult things that I've done as bishop. And the community actually does that together. It's not a sole task. That's actually true. That's Tim. That's true of quite a lot of the things that I've done. That I feel as though they've been collaborative, and I've been part of a story working with others. And that's what happens in ministry, isn't it? That you share ministry with others. And one of the things I've most enjoyed is licensing new clergy and giving them a licence which is both theirs and mine. And it's that shared ministry which has been so important. So the surprises have generally been dealt with by others, but I would say that in this particular period, Salisbury's had a sort of rather unpleasant taste of something which in fact was a sort of global story.
So how important do you think it is for churches to be sufficiently nimble to respond to needs that come as a surprise?
Absolutely critical, isn't it? And one of the most impressive things, the pandemic's been pretty dreadful, but the response of the churches, I think, has been very impressive. Lots of us weren't set up to do things online, but within 2 weeks, most of us were set up to do things online. And the way in which churches have responded to the needs of the local community and been right at the heart of providing and caring for a local community, telephone trees, making sure people don't slip through the net, are being looked after, making sure the food bank's well supplied. All of that, I think, churches have been really crucial to the way this is, and that's been impressively nimble, to the point at which I've been thinking that this is why Christianity is a great missionary religion, because actually we can adapt to every time and every place. And to watch that happen over this last period has been deeply impressive.
There must have been days as well where you'd been utterly frustrated. You sat down at the supper table with your wife Helen and said, "You'll never believe what's happened today." There must have been days like that.
Actually, that's not quite the question I would want to answer, but what I would answer is to say there have been days when I've spent so long on Zoom that I've been zoomed out and looking at a screen and sitting at a desk and looking at a screen. I do not feel I was made for that, and I think lots of us feel that. So I don't feel utterly frustrated. I mean, you're right, there have been some surprises, and on the whole I think it's better that they're kept, as it were, private and confidential. That's probably why I don't want to answer the question. But that sense of, the game has changed in the last 15, 16, 17 months, and it's just been so much more difficult and really exhausting. And I feel for clergy in this, because people have adapted and they've worked at it really, hard and consistently. But it does feel like everybody's tired, and to that extent, this has gone on a long time, and that's quite tough.
So, looking back over the 10 years, what has given you the greatest sense of fulfilment?
I love being a jobbing bishop. So installations, licensings, inductions of clergy, confirmations of lay people. We had a fantastically good period in this diocese when we increased the numbers that we were confirming. And if the Church of England sets as a target making new disciples, actually confirmations is sort of one of those old tools that was a great way of doing it. People of all ages coming to faith and making a commitment. And that's very moving to be part of, and that's a privilege. I've really enjoyed the Renewing Hope, Pray, Serve, Grow. I started by going around the diocese and listening to what was going on. Let's talk. I want to hear what's going on. And then we put together this, it's a strapline really, it's a vision statement, isn't it, rather than a strategy. Renewing Hope, Pray, Serve, Grow. And I ask people to think about, what do you pray for? How will we grow? Who will you serve? And that created a framework for everybody in the diocese. And they were open questions, and people managed to find their own responses locally. I really enjoyed that. And as a bishop's staff, we said that the way we'd like to be remembered is that we renewed hope. I'd like to think a bit of that has gone on. And some very good things have grown from it, particularly a focus on rural church and renewing hope in the rural church. That's been good. And then the focus on vocations and increasing the numbers of people being ordained and coming into lay ministry. A significant number of new licensed lay ministers coming this year. That's terrific news. And that's part of trying to develop and pass on this faith which has been given to us and we want to pass on to a new generation.
Inevitably, because the diocese goes on, that there will be unfinished business. What do you see as at the top of the agenda for the diocese post Bishop Nicholas?
I'd really loved to have got to more of a staging post than we've reached before finishing. But things are as they are, and the pandemic's going on longer than we'd expected, and we're going to have to live with that, I think, for quite a long time still to come. And therefore, there's quite a lot that is needing to be parcelled up and passed on. We've got a financial framework with which we can make decisions over the next 4-5 years to get to a balanced budget. That's pretty critical. We've got a mission and pastoral plan to help us deal with issues of deployment and reimagining ministry so that we can retain a Christian presence in every community and support that as a diocese and make it work. And so they're the two key things that we've done to provide a framework for the next bit. But the whole thing depends on the response to the generous giving campaign that will be running in September, because the finances of almost every parish, but certainly of the diocese, our finances are strained at the moment because of the pandemic. Actually, that's true of the country, it's true of every business, it's true of lots of families and households too. So we've got to pay attention to that. And not everybody will be able to give more, but those who can. If they give more, and as an average, if we give, say, the price of a cup of coffee, £2, something like that a week, additional, then that sorts the problems of the finances, and it would sort the problems of the finances in the local churches as well. Now, that's a big ask at this particular point, but, in response to that, we'll see where we get to, and then we'll be in a position to start making decisions about what the future looks like.
So in these final few days, as you prepare to lay down your charge, what is uppermost in your mind?
Yeah, well, the uppermost part is, do you know, there's a great team of people. It's not just the Bishop of Salisbury. So Bishop Karen becomes the acting bishop, and Bishop Andrew is the sponsoring bishop for ordination training. And do you know that they're really competent, and I feel very confident about leaving responsibility with them. The team of archdeacons equally. It's lovely being thanked for the pastoral care in this diocese. I've had some people have said lovely things to me, and quite often I've thought, it's not just me you're thanking, it's my colleagues. And so that sense of actually what's uppermost in my mind is that sense I'm leaving this in very safe hands. We are in a difficult time. The world's in a difficult time. This pandemic, it feels like the tectonic plates of the world are moving, and there are some big changes facing us. The pandemic, the economy, the climate change, environment, these are huge things. They're shaping the way things are for the future, and they're going to be difficult to address. Actually, it's never going to be a convenient point to leave in relation to big issues like that. And there's just a sense of trying to pray it, give it to God and give it to others and try to deal with it responsibly. And the thing I'm most pleased about, actually, the relationship with the Sudans is a really important part of this diocese. We've had a partnership for 48 years with what's now the Sudan and South Sudan. That's a part of the world which is poor, largely forgotten, where there are a huge number of conflicts running on, and just that sense of this is a different part of the world, and we've learned lots from them and with them. And to have that relationship come good in a way that the Archbishop of Juba was able to write on behalf of his whole House of Bishops to say thank you and to encourage the partnership and to see that continuing into the future. That's a really important bit to hand on, because both he and I said that what we wanted to do was to pass this relationship on to our successors, and that feels in really good heart.
Last year, when it was announced that the Channel Islands would be coming under the oversight of the Bishop of Salisbury, you commented that Salisbury is a happy diocese, and that was a very striking phrase. Can you just unpack that a little? What is a happy diocese?
Actually, it was Robert Key, former MP and former chair of the House of Laity, who used to say at General Synod, Robert Key, his synod number, from the happy diocese of Salisbury. And that used to make me really squirm. And actually, the more I've thought about it, the more I think that's really important. Any naval commander will tell you that the key to any naval action is a happy ship. You can't do anything without a happy ship. And I feel that in Salisbury what we've got is, it's deeply relational diocese. It's a largely rural diocese. If you live in a village, you've got to get on with everybody. It's a diocese with a lot of military and former military. Very pragmatic. Actually, this is how we do it, and this is what we're going to do. Get on with it. And I think it's that sense of wanting to work together and of recognising this is a collaborative task. And that's, I think, a really striking characteristic of this diocese. That, of course, we've got the range of views and divisions that exist within the church community. And we've got a deep commitment to our life in Christ. And I think the social context of the diocese really helps us in terms of what it is to be a happy diocese. And it's been a real pleasure to be the bishop of this diocese. And
finally, what's in your prayers in these last few days as you kneel on your own in your chapel? What's in your prayers?
Well, Tim, what I've been thinking back through is very nearly 42 years of ordained ministry, so not just the last 10 in the Diocese of Salisbury, but just that sense of actually what's been done through a long time. And it's quite hard to think that I've got to a point where I'm beginning to get older, where I'm putting this down. That I still feel as I'm not quite ready for that. And yet there's a lot to give thanks for, and to reflecting on the whole and what I've learned through it, and what some of the surprises and privileges have been on the journey through. For the diocese, I think my prayers are to do with that sense of renewing hope and praying that will continue, that people's hope in God will continue to be renewed. And it does seem to me that the diocese is almost a small miracle, that there's a Christian presence in every community, that people of faith continue to meet, to pray, to serve, and grow in the life of Christ. And that's worth praying for all of us as we go on into the future.
Bishop Nicholas, thank you.